Now I've got a pretty fun pattern for you today. It's not a real well-known fly, but it was created by a pretty well-known outdoorsman. Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm Matt, thanks for stopping by. Now the outdoorsman I'm talking about is Ted Trueblood. He was born in Boise, Idaho in 1913. He was originally a reporter, first in Boise and then later in Salt Lake City. Now here's where most of us have probably heard of him. In the 1930s, he became a writer for Field and Stream. He did pretty well there, moved on up. In 1941, became their fishing editor, moved to New York City, lived there throughout the 40s. I guess he got tired of the big city, moved back to Idaho in the late 40s, but he did continue contributing to Field and Stream for the next 30 years. Now, he was a conservationist his whole life. In 1975, the Department of the Interior recognized him with their Conservation Award, and the Outdoor Writers of America named him their Outdoorsman of the Year in 1975. He's also got a wildlife management area in Idaho named after him, as well as the Boise chapter of Trout Unlimited. Now we know he's been credited with several fly patterns out there, but the one I'm going to be doing today, it's a really simple caddis larva pattern, just called Trueblood's Caddis. Now I couldn't tell when he came up with this pattern, but sometime in the 40s or 50s, that's probably a good guess. Now again, simple pattern, but I think it's pretty cool looking. It was certainly fun to tie. I think y'all are going to like it. Let's give it a shot. So there it is in the vise, Trueblood's Caddis. Really simple pattern, not at all hard to tie. The recipe does say as big as an 8, small as a 12. I think an 8's pretty big. I'm going to go ahead and tie it on a 10, but I think if I was tying these to make a lot to fish, I'd probably tie it on the smaller end. And I don't need a base of thread all the way down. I'm just going to catch a little bit of black thread in here toward the back where I'm going to tie in the tail. And the tail, same thing we're going to be using for the body, just some green floss. This happens to be a Danville 4-strand rayon. I'll show you in a second when we're tying it for the body. But just go ahead and catch this in all the way around the start of the bend, but leave it on top. And now we can just either snip or bury this right here. Either will be fine. Take my thread back up front where I'm going to catch in my rib. Just a silver wire. This is size small. You could certainly use a brassy. I did one with a brassy and it looked just fine. Brassy is a little harder to work with, a little harder to tie off and break. So if you've got a small, I'd just recommend sticking with that. So let's catch this in all the way to the back where we're going to start our body. Take our thread back up front and grab about 3 or 4 strands of Peacock herl. Now I've already broken off the brittle ends of this, and I want to catch it in up front just to maybe it will help build a little bit of bulk in this body, and then I can use a little bit less floss when I'm wrapping it. So we'll go ahead and take that all the way back. Now when we get up front, I'm going to go ahead and do a half hitch right here, a couple of them I guess, because how I'm going to wrap the floss, I've gone ahead and put it on a bobbin holder to make it a little bit easier. Now one thing I forgot, I probably should have gone ahead and trimmed this tail. And you want it well less than a hook gap. I'd say maybe half of a hook gap or even smaller. So let's try that right there. I think that'll be just fine. So here's this floss we're going to be using for the body. That's the same thing as the tail. It's a Danville 4-strand rayon, and I put it in one of my bobbin holders that has the fattest tube. So let's catch this in right here, and we'll treat this just like we would thread. But before we take it all the way back, let's go ahead and snip this tag end off. And now you'll want to be really careful around the point of your hook. Plenty of times we nick our thread with the point of our hook, and that's easy enough to recover from. But if you do it with the big thick cord of floss like this, you're going to make a big mess. So that's really about 2 layers right there. We're going to need to go a little bit more, so let's go back. This is putting down a good bit of material right now, but let me show you when I get to the back. See how corded up that thread is? That's because every wrap on your hook puts a clockwise spin in your bobbin holder. So when we get back here, you might want to just give it a clockwise spin and let this kind of flatten back out, and it might make a difference, help you get a smoother body going forward. It might not be that noticeable, but it's always worth a try. Okay, so that's how thick we want our body. Now comes a little bit of a tricky part, not too hard, but where you'll want to be kind of careful. We just take our black thread again, we're going to need to catch this off. And the hard part about it is you're just kind of wrapping thread wraps with this bobbin holder still hanging on there. So I'm going to put several right in front of it, and now take it behind it and catch it off right here. So if you do this right, you'll be able to get several wraps locking that floss in before you need to snip it. Okay, so I think we're good right there. Should be caught in. Now I can snip this floss and the tag end of that thread at the same time. We might have a little fluff right there. You can either bury or take care of it however you want, possibly trim it, or just not really worry about it. Okay, so I'm going to back my thread up a little bit, and next thing I'm going to do, this peacock herl. Just fold it over, try to keep them parallel. I don't really want them crossing each other. And this is why you only wanted 3. I did one with 5, and it really overpowered the fly. It just kind of made it, I think, too dark overall. So there's 3 wraps right there. I think that's fine. Just go ahead and break these off, and a couple extra wraps to lock it. Now let's wrap this silver wire. 4 or 5 wraps going up will be just fine, and really it's just to give it some durability. Okay, when you get it up front, let's go ahead and catch it off. And maybe I need to take that last statement back. I don't know for sure if this is just for durability. Maybe it's also to give it a little bit of segmentation. You know, it's quite possible that's how Trueblood intended it. We may never know. Okay, when you break that off, let's go ahead and I've got a little sharp nub right there, so I'm going to spend a few extra loose thread wraps to just kind of bury that. And then this fluff right there, try to take care of that too before we tie in our legs. And the legs just calls for natural mallard. So I'm taking one of my scrap leftover feathers here and going to cut about 15 or 20 fibers. And I'm going to catch it in on the underside. Don't want it too long. I would say no more than to the point of the hook. So let's get a couple wraps here and check it. I think that's just a little bit too long. Let's see if I can pull that shorter. And maybe a little bit shorter. Okay, I think that's it right there. Another securing wrap, and then let's snip this excess. Okay, now let's work on our head. Now I like a pretty big head on a fly like this. I think it's a prominent part of it. Big, hard, shiny head cement or UV resin. So don't be afraid to put a big head on a nymph like this. I think that's probably big enough. Let's go ahead and do a whip finish. Now, do we have any cleanup? No, I don't think so. That body could be a little less lumpy, but I think we're fine. The tail looks fine. I don't have too many stray fibers. I think a drop of head cement and this thing's ready to fish. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.